What is up, hotties? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm BLAIDEN Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Sponhour and Theo Ash. We have another great episode planned for you all today. We're getting down to the nitty-gritty of draft time. Today, we are taking a look at the top wide receivers in this draft. But before we get into that, I want to remind you all to subscribe to the YouTube if you have not already. Every Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern time, we go live on the YouTube. And the next live, we will probably end up discussing some more draft stuff. So if you want to tune in, ask some questions, and hear all the takes that we have to give there, subscribe to the YouTube. And there will also be tons of exclusive content there as well. Theo is dropping a video on Jordan Love. So if you want to check that out, subscribe to the YouTube. But Matt, Theo, how are you guys doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm so Packers pilled. I've become Packers pilled over the last 24 hours after watching the Jordan Love tape and everyone else on the team, some Christian Watson, some Rashawn Gary. I'm about to say it. The Packers will be making the playoffs next year. That's a bonus take. They're just too talented. They have built the most athletic team in history. They will only draft elite athletes without much college production, which always scares me on draft night. But they all develop. So we just need Joe Barry to play some real defense. I think that Jordan Love is going to be surprisingly good, and I'll detail that in my video. But I'm pumped. I'm ready for the Packers season to start tomorrow. All
right. Well, we'll see if that comes true for you, Theo. I don't know if I've ever seen you. I don't know if I've ever seen you excited for a Packers season. So this is interesting.
That's because I know that we're going to fall short every year for the last decade. Like, just not quite the roster to win the whole thing, but with the talent and the expectations for another ring. This year, there is no talent. There is talent, but there are no aspirations, and there is no Hall of Fame quarterback. So I feel like this year is actually a year where they can surpass expectations and actually have a pleasantly surprising season instead of one that falls short.
Okay. I think that's fair enough. Matt, how are you hanging in there today?
Doing all right. Still working on the house, but not much to report.
You're in it. This is the first podcast in months.
And been a long time. It's been very annoying, but yeah, everything's still getting set up, but it'll be ready here pretty soon.
Nice. The Matt House saga is almost over. End of an era for sure. Well, I think we can just hop right in, honestly, and start talking about these receivers. I think we're all kind of in the same consensus that Jackson Smith-Njigba is the number one receiver in this draft class, and by a pretty wide margin.
Yes, it's really, really not that close, man.
Yeah, it's not. Theo, I know you've detailed some of the receivers in some videos. Why don't you give us your...
We talked about JSN really recently when he ran at his pro day and ran in the low 4.5s.
That's true.
I just went back and I rewatched some of his film and it's really good. He's just open all the time. And if you play zone coverage, he's going to be open because he finds the hole and he just sits down. He catches everything. He's the best contested catch artist in this class. Really good body control, focus, soft hands to bring in catches that are, through contact, a little bit messy with guys hanging all over him. He still brings in the catches and catches behind him. He adjusts. He can spin around in the air, pluck him out of the air behind him, hit the ground running, keep going forward. Like he's a great yak threat despite the lack of home run speed. I think that he is speedy enough. He is explosive just enough to continue to be a productive player at the NFL and shake free NFL cornerbacks. I do think that he'll be able to do that. That's the one concern that you would have with him. I'm not too concerned about it. I think that, yes, he doesn't have high end speed, but the more I watch him, the more I'm convinced, we could be, is this guy the next Cooper Kupp? Is this guy Amon-Ra St. Brown? Is this guy Keenan Allen? He really could be. And he broke out and had a ton of production at a very young age at Ohio State. Garrett Wilson said that's the best guy on the team. Chris Olave said that's the best guy on the team. I mean, the production said that's the best guy on the team. I don't know if I like him better as a prospect than Garrett Wilson, but man, he should be the guy that goes first off the board on the 27th of April.
And I know it's the expectation is that, oh, he's just such a great threat against zone coverage. But, I was looking today just at like the PFF premium stats, just entertaining myself, bored in between classes. And I noticed that most of the receivers in this class either struggle against man or against zone. Most of them aren't really good against both. The only one who is JSN. He had like 4.2 yards per route run against man coverage and 4.3.
Is it actually 4?
4.26 yards per route run versus man, 4.34 yards per route run against zone. Out of this world.
Dude, they just can't guard him. And people are going to overthink this because I'm a big traits guy too, but people are going to overthink this, man. You see the all-22. You see what he's doing. The way that he's working in zones at his age is ridiculous. The way that he's beating man is ridiculous. And you know what? He doesn't have long speed, but that doesn't mean I don't like the way that he moves. He still isn't. Those combine numbers and the short and quick stuff, they're not made up. That's not just combine magic. So I think to sell him short just because he didn't run this super fast 40, it's kind of bogus. And to sell him short because he's a slot player, I mean, if you don't like slot receivers, I have incredibly bad news about this draft class. There's about one guy you can draft, and that's it. So I think JSN, Ohio State stuff aside, I think JSN is easily wide receiver 1 for me. And then he went to Ohio State, so he's the best player in the entire class. The
Ohio State boost.
It really does make me feel better about him. If he's winning out in that receiver room, that does speak to him. But that's obviously not actually a way to judge a player.
And I wonder if he has to be a slot guy at the next level. Like, he is an average sized wide receiver by height, by weight. Like, he is not tiny. He passes. The Packers do not draft tiny receivers. All their guys are big. They need to be like at least 6 feet tall and like at least 200 pounds, basically. I don't know the exact thresholds, but there is a very clear historical threshold for the types of athletes that they draft. And JSN just barely clears those thresholds for a team that has pretty strict ones. So he's got size and he's got speed and he's got some route running ability. Why couldn't you line him up on the outside? Like, it's not like he's going to like crumple and die because there's a sideline there. He would be able to do it, I think. Same reason as like Justin Jefferson or a little bit reminiscent of that. They had Jamar Chase. They had Terrace Marshall Jr. They had guys to be on the outside, and they just put Justin Jefferson in the slot. And that didn't mean that he didn't have the tools to win outside at the NFL level. And I wonder if JSN, like, what really is preventing him from being able to win at all different levels and or maybe not all different levels, but at different positions on the football field, both inside and out.
The only thing that would concern me is that he had 46 outside snaps as a receiver in 2021.
Yeah, he hasn't done it.
So that's what I'm saying. He hasn't done it. So it's just like the consistency of getting used to going against like a press corner, right? You go against those guys. You don't go against those guys very often. It's not something you're comfortable with. That would be my concern.
You haven't seen him do it, but I do think like people say, oh, he's just gonna be a slot guy. Like, he's a slot guy. He's only a slot guy. Like, yeah, that might be the best place for him. Like, it really might be. That's where he will probably thrive at the NFL level. But to say like he is only a slot guy, I think that his profile makes me pretty confident that he could succeed anywhere. He might be best in the slot, and that might be where you want to play him, and that's totally fine. If he was on the Packers, that's probably where I'd have him, playing almost like a tight end role, a security blanket for a young player like Jordan Love. I don't think I'd have him like taking the top off the defense or running deeper routes. I'd want him exploiting those underneath zones, but I think he could if you really needed him to play outside.
Probably, yeah. And again, we talked about Matt. Not only was his short and intermediate, or his short, 3-cone and stuff, the 20-yard shuttle, good. It was like top 5 all time.
Yeah, I mean, he really is unbelievably quick. So, I mean, how many good receivers are there out there who didn't run like low 4.4, high 4.3 40s? I mean,
almost all of them.
And you know what? If JSN is your number one receiver because of that, then I don't want to hear you say that you don't care about the combine. People love to say, "Oh, there's more to receivers than speed, but then those numbers actually drop, and all of a sudden it's pearl clutching time, and we aren't allowed to love those players anyway.
Right.
And it is funny because a lot of like, oh, he's too small and he's maybe just a slot guy. That's something that you could say even more so about a bunch of different receivers in this class. This is the small slot class. So yeah. I have him receiver 1. I think don't overthink it. He's just so good.
Yeah, no, I don't think you can overthink this, but if people do, and people probably will, I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of people still push Quentin Johnston to be their wide receiver 1 just because of the size and what he can offer physically.
Well, it's funny. He's funny, man. I mean, because our goal here is to talk about the top 6 guys, like the 6, not necessarily the 6 best receivers, but the 6 most popular receivers, right?
Yeah.
Of them,
and to be clear, we should probably say what's that? We should probably say who we're detailing, but it's JSN, Jordan Addison, Johnston, Hyatt, Downs, and Flowers. Those are the 6
guys.
Yes.
How many of them were like
whatever?
How many of them are being billed as outside receivers at the NFL level? 1.
Johnston.
Just Quentin Johnston. Maybe Addison to some extent, although he really did not kill it against press this year, did not kill it as an outside receiver. And I when he was at Pitt and he put up those crazy numbers, he was in the slot.
The NFL will not value him as they'll look at him as a slot guy. I'm very, very convinced of this. Yeah.
So
you could maybe say Hyatt too. Hyatt is someone who can line up on the outside.
Hyatt got a lot of work from the slot, and he didn't face press all that much either. I don't know if he... Yeah, I don't know if he is.
Do you want to know a crazy
guy.
stat about Jalin Hyatt that I just learned today? When he faces man coverage, he did not have a single contested target against man coverage all year.
Really?
We'll get into
that's nuts.
We'll get into
that's wild. I think
we are talking about that is a good stat, but we are talking about Quentin Johnston.
Yes,
I think. Yeah, it's not really a fair comparison because of the injury stuff. And I know that's why Metcalf went so late. But the fact that Metcalf, like if Quentin Johnston gets drafted higher than where Metcalf was, that is so bogus, man. I think that this is, I think Christian Watson was a better prospect than Quentin Johnston. There's athletic guys like this every year. In my opinion, he doesn't have quite enough there to make me fully buy into the athletic profile. I don't hate him, but he's not my favorite.
DK was plucking balls out of the air.
And DK was a better athlete too.
Yeah.
DK was like...
DK was a freak.
Yeah, he was something entirely different.
Quentin Johnston didn't go viral for his locker room flexing. Is all I'm saying.
I remember where I was when the DK Metcalf 40 time dropped. I was in. That was a cultural reset when a guy that big ran that fast. I was like, that is one of the most memorable combine moments ever. Was when he finished that run. I was watching on my school iPad in Mr. OJ's science class. I was not paying attention. I think I may have let out an audible gasp. At least I think that's where I was. I don't remember.
I can just imagine.
I remember watching the combine instead of paying attention.
Theo's in biology class and just goes,
yeah. Speaking of bio, this is a really great feat of human engineering here, guys. We should be talking about this. Yes, you're right. He is a bit DK-esque. DK is someone who is prone to playing a little bit smaller than he is. He's someone who is prone to not running the crispest routes down the field. But DK Metcalf is still good. That's the thing. And it'll be interesting to see if that gives people confidence in Quentin Johnston. He's a little DK-esque, but DK has these flaws and is still pretty good. So Johnston has these flaws. Can he still be pretty good? Or will they say he's a worse prospect than DK with the same issues? DK went in the second round. Quentin Johnston could fall maybe even a bit farther. I wonder what his stock is right now. I truly don't know. I think that some team will take a chance on him early just because he is the guy who can line up at X on the outside. He has the overall athletic talent, speed, height, weight to kind of run an offense through. If anyone in this class is like a Jamar Chase, an AJ Brown, it's probably him. So it wouldn't surprise me if maybe one team takes a swing on that early, but I'm with you, Matt. It's a little bit tough to see.
And I think that's the exact logic that's going to get teams in trouble. It's like, well, if any of these guys were going to be a really great outside receiver comparison, it would be the only athletic guy who's an outside receiver, projected in the top 2 rounds. That, in my opinion, is being like, who's this year's so-and-so? Well, maybe nobody. There doesn't have to be anybody. I don't think he's that bad, but I just think it's like, I see him go at 12, and I'm like, man, that's really high for somebody who I don't think tracks the ball really well. I think is being billed as like a super physical guy, or who's being billed as like a player who has these great physical
like
traits,
Higgins.
but isn't a super physical player.
Yeah. I see T. Higgins comparison. No,
T. Higgins is like, he's like the best contested catch artist in the NFL. Like,
I mean, what Johnston's numbers contested? I don't remember what they were. They were like not good. They were
they weren't. They were like 33%.
It's in the 30s. It's
so bad. I mean, you're hoping for either for him to come along a little bit more as a receiver. It's like, is he going to be just like your straight up burner and he's just big enough to destroy press and then get guys downfield? That I could see, but I don't know if I see him as some like just throw it up to him. I don't see him as a very I think there's a very limited path to how he wins, and that's still not like worthless. But is it like a borderline top 10 pick to me? I think there's too much there that we're not seeing.
He's better earlier in the rep. It feels like as the rep goes on, he loses focus. Like his releases are good, I think. And like right off the line, there's a lot of bursts there. Like he's pretty refined. He's pressing downfield. But as that break comes, he rises up and up and up and up. And you can tell when that break is coming. He's good off the line, but he kind of loses that technique when he's really kind of in the thick of things. He hears footsteps. He catches into his body. It's inconsistent. Everything about him is inconsistent. The blocking on the perimeter. Sometimes there's some great reps. Sometimes he gets beat pretty badly, like worse than you'd like to see for a guy his size. Sometimes he skies and makes like incredible contested catches along the sideline. Like there are some really cool highlights with him that really make you intrigued, but it's just not there all the time. He has good like lateral agility for a guy his size. You see that when he makes people miss after the catch. You see that at the release. Like he can really put his foot in the ground and create some separation early, but it's just not like that all the time. And it's not like that down the field. So he's someone that really, whatever happens with him, I think I'd be more surprised if he actually reaches his potential and becomes this elite guy, because it feels like more often that doesn't happen than it does. He definitely has work to do. I do see the potential. I don't know. What are you guys thinking for like a round grade on him? Like where would you start to be like, okay, I could take a chance?
I mean, there's a lot of teams that are probably going to end up reaching on receiver.
I get him. I get it like mid-second, early, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
Especially if it's one of these teams that has a couple firsts and they're like, okay, we want to take a project who's got huge upside. I can see that as like your third dude you get in this draft. But I don't know. I think he's worth that. But if I were a team, I probably would be scared of taking that shot. But I definitely see the positive, the good outcomes. He just might be not. Me personally, I would just draft JSN instead.
Yeah, I would say he's probably not. If I'm the GM, he's probably not going to be on my team. And that seems to be a pretty popular take throughout draft Twitter. Like these days, I feel like a lot of people are lower on Johnston now than they were like when the college football season ended, and he's kind of getting lower and lower in these draft conversations. So I don't know what he did. People, I guess, are just watching the tape, I suppose. But yeah, I would say probably mid second round, late second round. That's probably where
that's fair.
I would start to say, yeah, it's probably worth a chance at this point.
Yeah, Matt, you said you would take JSN instead, but what if JSN's not there? at like the 20th pick, who would you take?
I wouldn't let that happen.
You're trading up.
At the 20th
the first
pick?
overall pick, the Carolina Panthers select Jackson Smith-Njigba.
That's a tough. Here's the thing: we can only really get Stroud at 1, but we could trade back up for JSN. Let me GM. Let me drive.
What's up, hotties? If you love good food like I do, you gotta check out HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. Look, living on a college student's budget can make it feel like you've got to dig in your pockets for a quality meal these days. With grocery store prices rising every day, now is the perfect time to get started with HelloFresh. HelloFresh is cheaper than grocery shopping and 25% less expensive than takeout. And whatever you do, don't let professors piling assignments on your plate prevent you from eating like a king. With pre-portioned ingredients, foolproof recipes, and convenient doorstop delivery, cooking with HelloFresh is easier than a Nick Chubb touchdown. And, I just ordered myself some more HelloFresh, and my sister can't take it from me this time because I ordered it to my apartment instead of my house. She always wants to take my HelloFresh and cook some for herself. Matt, Theo, I don't know if you guys have a similar experience with that.
I don't have any sisters.
One time, real story. One time I had HelloFresh shipped to my house or my apartment, but my apartment had a rat infestation and a rat gnawed through the box and ate it all. That is dead ass what happened.
Bro, so hopefully you don't have a rat infestation.
So
but
everyone loves
everyone, even those little critters were eating through the cardboard to get to that delicious HelloFresh, and I looked in the box, and it's so easy to cook that I even saw a little oven set up like Ratatouille. They cooked the whole thing themselves.
Make sure you head on over to HelloFresh.com/StayHot60 and use the code StayHot60 to get 60% off your order plus free shipping. Again, that's HelloFresh.com/StayHot60 and use the code StayHot60 for 60% off plus free shipping. Hopefully you get to it before the critters do. And get
rodents.
HelloFresh, the rodents. Get America's #1 meal kit. Let's say you have the 20th pick and JSN got picked at 19, but you really need a receiver, Matt. Who are you taking?
Zay Flowers.
My God.
Zay Flowers. Yeah.
What do y'all like about Zay Flowers?
Dude, he is so quick in the short game. And I think that no one's going to be able to keep up with him on these quick little first cuts. But also, dude, there's this catch in their first game they played. For the life of me, I can't remember who it is, but he just fades back into the ball perfectly with awesome body control. I know his frame is small, but he's so good at getting to the ball. I don't care. There's a lot of small receivers who are probably going to have to play the slot. If I'm going to get one, it's going to be the guy who I think is a really strong deep threat, who I think is really good at going and getting the football, even though he has a small frame, who is really, really athletically inclined, and who is really good after the catch. Zay Flowers, all of those things, he'd be the guy I'd go with.
Well, I just remember watching this guy weave in between tacklers. And I'm like, it's one thing to have the agility to make one man miss, but to have the control and the awareness to, again, weave in between tackles, break off of guys. He's a really strong receiver for a guy his size. There's one play where he catches a pass over his shoulder and then DB's jumping on his back to try and bring him down. He squats this DB up to run into the end zone. I'm like, dog, who is doing that?
Yeah, so I'm a huge fan of him. He moves so well, and he's good at several different big aspects you look for in a receiver: the deep ball, the yards after catch. So he's my receiver too.
I think I'm with you. I debate between him and Addison.
That's fair.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's one of those two, though. I agree. He's the twitchiest, most dynamic receiver in the draft. That's for sure. Like most explosive. You could see it as soon as he releases off the line of scrimmage. He's moving right away. And with the ball in his hands, like he can burn angles, and it's impressive. His agility at top speed is what really, I think, stands out the most with him to me. Like he can be flying down the field and still cornering and yet maintaining all that speed through it. And that helps after the catch as well. There'll be times where he can burn angles down the sideline because he beats them and he's just tiptoeing along the sideline and the balance is so good and he's still moving so fast. And you're like, that's pretty special. He can run down the field and commit his hips one way and then just flip right around and burst and go the other way, like on a corner post, something like that. Like he's run some beautiful like corner posts where he's changing directions and maintaining full speed, and guys just can't hang with him. So yeah, it's a really intriguing package. He is smaller. I do worry about his play strength. I'm maybe not as high as you, BLAIDEN, mentioning. Like for a smaller receiver, he's really good at playing through contact. I don't really see that with him. He's someone that isn't really going to run through somebody. He has shorter arms. He's not someone who can bat hands down or away. He prefers to loop around people than like chop and run right through them, which can lead to like wider releases. I saw him run way out of bounds on some plays where he gets checked and he's like running like past the white stripe, almost like running out of bounds because he got pressed to the sideline a little bit hard. So his catch radius, that also affects catch radius a little bit. I don't know if he's going to be a guy that is a high volume guy, but he can be a pretty electric number 2 and have his share of highlights and instantly make your offense more explosive.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's fantastic.
I don't know. I think he's a baller.
I don't think there's anything else to say. We kind of just raved about this guy.
He's nice.
He is nice. I don't think that he is a number 1, I would say. I'd say is like a very explosive number 2. Although the thing of like number 1, number 2 is kind of stupid because I don't really think that's how NFL teams tend to look at it. But I don't think that he can ever be the best. I don't know if I'd want him as like the best wide receiver on my team. Do you know what I'm saying? Like a Pro Bowler consistently or an all pro caliber top 10 receiver year after year after year. I don't know if I quite see that with him.
But if he, again, this is why I think he's like a great fit for the Chargers because they have it's like the one archetype they're missing. It's the one piece of that offense that they need. They have Keenan Allen, who is, really just fallen off the cliff athletically. And he was never like a stellar athlete to begin with, but he still has route running finesse. He's still like a decent receiver and produces well for them. They have Mike
he's a good
Williams,
security. He's still a good security blanket.
Right.
Like absolutely. I would rather, if I was the Chargers, I would rather have Zay Flowers probably than JSN at this point, just because JSN's role is like that reliable security blanket.
The same guy
is kind of filled, and who knows for how much longer, but they need someone a little bit more explosive for Herbert.
Right. It's like they have everything else. And then even like Eckler is like requesting a trade. So if they lose him, I mean, then they really have no explosiveness on that offense at all.
Right. That's a good point. Yeah. It would not surprise me at all if he's the pick.
I think he should be. But who's next? Theo, you said you're a big fan of Addison too, right?
I don't know if I'm a big fan of him. I'm sure there's people out there who have him as like the best receiver in the class. I think that he's very smooth. He's a great route runner. He is someone who is a salesman at the top of the route, like setting guys up and then breaking the other way. He's someone who doesn't have the problem of like rising and giving away the route break before it happens. Like he's very difficult to keep up with in man coverage. Like he's sneaky. He can settle down in zones. He's got a good feel for everything, just like JSN does. I think that he's going to be a pretty good slot receiver. I think that it's again, there's a lot of guys you can kind of group because I'm going to say similar things about Josh Downs. But he is, I think, a bit more reliable or a bit smoother than, I don't know how to compare him and Downs because this sounds a lot like Downs too because Downs is always open. He's got great footwork. I don't know how I feel about it. My thing with Addison is like he's gonna be fine. Like he's very kind of solid to me, not spectacular. I would like to see him be bigger and add more upper body strength to work through press coverage. But he's just so smooth and he's got reliable hands, and I think he's going to be a solid player that's worth taking like early, mid, second round. Definitely not going to be like one of the best receivers in the league, though. I don't know if I see that path for him.
I mean, that's kind of what we've been saying about all of these receivers, except for JSN, who is of course going to be the greatest receiver of all time.
Will be the best receiver in the league.
Even with JSN, like, is he going to be that like top tier guy? Probably
no,
not.
It's like he's not even going to maybe be a game breaker unless he really lives up to the Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, unless we get the Cooper Kupp, Travis Kelce like open every play.
Right. And because he's a receiver, he can actually win Offensive Player of the Year as opposed to Kelce, who will never win it despite being awesome every single year.
But I don't know if I have the strongest opinions on Addison either. I mean, I think he does a lot of stuff well. I super agree about the selling routes. I really like when receivers can like get a defensive back turned around and then like sneak behind where they're not looking. I always think that's so funny. But Addison is super solid. I think people were expecting huge things from him this year. Because he had like 1,600 receiving yards, and then it's like he's playing with Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley, and it's like, oh my God, he's gonna go, he's gonna go for 2K, and it didn't happen. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that he was outside for most of the season, and that's just, it ain't him. He's not an outside guy. I think like he only had like 60 or so catches, almost half of them were screens. But when he got when he didn't see that press coverage, he was really good. And if you move him into the slot, he won't. And I think he'll be really good again.
Yeah. I mean, that's Matt, he had 385 snaps from the slot in 2021, only 77 this past year. So, I mean, that's the story right there.
Yeah. He'll be solid and unspectacular. I don't. I don't know, man. I feel that way about a lot of the receivers. Yeah, like we've been saying, he's someone who has some foot speed. I think that we saw him be a decent deep threat. Like he is fast enough. He did run a 4.48, which is like not as slow as a lot of people initially made it out to be. Like this is terrible. But for someone who's so light, you'd like to see him be one of the fastest guys on the field.
Here's the thing is, because what people's concern is, well, he also needs to put on weight. If he adds weight and he's already running a 4.48, is he going to get slower?
I kind of agree. And that's what I think the problem is for a couple of these guys is that they're like really light and pushing 4.5. People sit there and say anything in the 4.4s is great. And it's like, yeah, that's fast, but the speed score for that player is going to be not great, and adding weight is going to be really hard to keep up with pace before you're like, there's not a lot of room for you to win anymore vertically. I think Addison is. I think Addison's a funny guy after the catch. He's kind of gazelle like, he's got really long legs, so. He's not as maybe clean, and like his cuts aren't as clean maybe as some other guys. I don't know if that's an unfair thing to characterize him with, or whether or not he's just taking big steps and it seems that way. But he is, I think, good after the catch overall. Some guys can go too far into that sort of uncoordinated running. I don't think he does. But if he were to lose speed, then you'd be real concerned about it.
You would. The one other thing I'll add about the weight thing is when I was training for track still, my coach was telling me that he actually wanted me to put on weight because there is a like prime running weight for every athlete. And so for some people, it's you have to be lighter. For some people, you have to be heavier. So there is a world in which he puts on 10 pounds and it actually helps him because he's just stronger.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I guess I don't know enough about it. Yeah, I just don't think he's ever going to be like this really physical, dominant at the point of attack, like play strength type of guy.
Yeah.
I don't know if I look at him and see this body type that can hold a Stephon Diggs level frame or something like that, or Devontae Adams or whoever, these like top end guys who win via route running. Like they're still pretty damn broad and strong. A lot of the big route runner winners, you would have to be a bit of a smaller one and probably going to be a decent slot guy that you take probably late or mid second. Yeah, that's where a lot of these guys fall.
That's an interesting discussion before we get into the other two guys. Do you think these guys are going to be drafted accordingly to like where they rank, taking into account several years? Or do you think they're going to be drafted into account of like, well, we need a receiver and we're sitting here at, 21 and two guys are already off the board, so we're taking receiver number 3? Because from what mock drafts will tell you right now is that you're seeing like 4 wide receivers in the first round.
We've done 2 mock drafts now where we've had 4 or 5 receivers go in the first.
I think there's a real chance Addison and Downs don't go that high. I just think that they're going to get the slot stamp, and that's never really like small slot receivers just don't go in the first round very high historically. Like that aren't that fast, that aren't that strong. Like, what is the upside here? He's someone crafty. They can be a nice piece. And yeah, with Downs, by scouting report, it's very, very similar on Downs and Addison. But in fact, if I talk to myself into it, I have Addison above Downs right now, and I'm like talking to myself and like thinking it over right now, and I might just switch that live on air right here. But I think that's not the question.
Was Downs the guy where you posted like the literal spin move in the route?
Yes, he did do that. That was a funny rep.
That was a funny rep. It worked,
but
though.
I do
got
think
open.
I didn't answer the question. I think that the slot guys, Downs and Addison, will go like in the second round. I don't think that any teams will really be like, that's a clear first rounder for us. I think that there's going to be guys with higher upside that go instead and they get pushed down.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Downs is an interesting one because you talk about these guys being small. Dude, didn't he weigh in at like 171, 5'8"? We're getting into like 2 Atwell range here, man.
5'9", 171.
I don't know. There's a point where you do draw the line on that stuff. I know you said that Tank Dell was completely off your board. He ran he weighed 165. So that's pretty close. But you seem to like Downs a decent amount, whereas Dell,
I haven't watched Dell. It's tough. Dell is even smaller than Downs is, like to the point where it's getting really small. Downs is in the 2nd percentile for weight, 8th percentile for height at the combine, and I just do not really like love this class, and I don't really love tiny dudes, but what I do like about Downs is his footwork is very nice. Like he is someone who really can set up defensive backs in some really creative ways and some severe ways. Like he's someone who'll take a couple steps upfield, totally get a guy to flip his hips, cut inside. He's someone who, will jump up, kind of hop up, straighten out like he's about to break, and then just run right upfield. I think that Addison's a bit smoother in his movements than Downs is. It's like it's all kind of run at not one speed, but the feet are a little bit smooth. It's not so many like stutter step breaks in and out. It's kind of more rounded, but still tight corners and it just overall a little bit more fluid than Downs. But Downs is open all the time. You turn on the tape, he's open. And he had a really good contested catch rate. Even though he's a smaller guy, like he can adjust to the football and make some tough grabs, which is something that Addison didn't really do as much. but much like Addison, Downs struggles dealing with contact. He ran a slower 40 than you'd like to see someone his weight be. So I just don't see a massively high ceiling here for people who are like really high on Downs. They're like, this guy's great. It's like, he's fine, but I don't know if I see greatness, consistent top tier greatness with either of these two.
I guess that's fair. I don't really have anything to add. You've kind of hit everything on those.
Well, I don't know.
I guess that leaves
with Downs. Like, is he good after the catch? Not.
Do you think so? I don't think so.
Particularly, right? Yeah. Is he was he a great deep threat last year?
I don't think so. I don't think he's got the speed to really. Yeah.
And he weighs 170 pounds. Like, dude, this is getting like, and I don't disagree with the positives. Like, I see the vision, but man, that is a tough path to being a serious NFL receiver. And I saw a tweet today saying his range was 25 to 45 in the draft. A first round pick on. No. Oh my God. That would, I think it would be nuts.
I don't see a first round with him at all. Like, and it's him and Addison. I might be high on him, like, as I'm thinking about it more compared to Addison, because I think they're pretty similar in terms of like the way they win and their size. And I think Addison higher, like by a bucket than Downs, like in a slightly different bucket, second round versus third round, something like that, or late first versus mid second. But they might be in the same bucket, and that bucket might be a little bit lower than where I even have them now. Like, I might knock Addison down to Downs' level more than bringing Downs way up, just because I don't think either of these guys are like, they're going to get to the league and they're just going to be, they're down in the slot. Like,
realistically, these guys.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Yes. Like, I think they'll be NFL players.
Cole Beasley,
Beasley would be. Yeah, that's like a relatively high. Like, if you
Cole Beasley,
a player of Cole Beasley's caliber, that's a second rounder.
How much does Cole Beasley weigh?
That's a good question.
He can't be that big. He had a really good.
He had a really exactly.
Oh, okay. He's 5'8", 174. Okay.
Yeah, and Beasley had some really useful years, I would say. There was a year where that's got to be special teams, where he was second team All-Pro AP. Yeah. That's got to be special teams, right? But I remember in 2020, they're like, what if I told you there was a receiver who had more yards than this guy and more first downs than this guy and more, like, that player is Cole Beasley. He had like a really good year in 2020, and he also had a really good year in 2016 with Dak. So if someone could be like Cole Beasley consistently, like, that's kind of where I see these guys. They're not taking the top off. They're not. The offense isn't running through them. But what?
Yeah, I'm actually thinking about it now. That Cole Beasley's second team All-Pro was
a receiver.
Was it actually for receiver?
Yeah, he's the last receiver listed on the All-Pro team.
That's really tough.
That's crazy.
I'm trying to see now what I now want to see like what the receiving stats were for that year.
I don't know, man, but there was probably someone a little bit better than Cole Beasley.
Oh,
no disrespect, because he had a great year.
COVID year, right? 2020.
Yeah, it was 2020.
Yeah,
but I mean, like, I guess
there may have been enough people. Man. I think there was like Peter King's logic for this was like, well, you could vote for 3 receivers, so I'm voting for the best slot receiver because that's how it is in a real team. Like, there's 2 outsides and 1 slot. So I feel like a lot of people voted for him just because he was the best slot receiver that year, which is true. But I would probably just not vote for Cole Beasley still.
I mean,
I get it.
Surely there was still someone like
the goal.
All I'm saying,
get the best
all I'm saying
guys.
is
same thing as all NBA.
Adam Thielen was 3rd in touchdowns and didn't make the All-Pro team.
I don't know 2020 ball off the top of my head.
I guess I'm like
who should have made it instead, but I don't know. Cole Beasley probably would not. I feel pretty safe saying he probably would not have received my vote in 2020. I would say that off the top of my head, Brown, Jefferson, Diggs, Adams, and like D-Hop had 1,400 yards that year. Yeah. Is there 6?
It was Devontae, Diggs, Tyreek Hill, Hopkins, Justin Jefferson, DK Metcalf, AJ Brown, Calvin Ridley, and Cole Beasley. Those were all these guys that made the All-Pro team.
Okay, so what we're saying is that Downs and Addison have All-Pro upside.
No!
If there's a really fucked up year in voting, they can make second team All-Pro with the slot asterisk.
If you are on the YouTube, comment down below and let us know how this happened. How did Cole Beasley...
I just told you how it happened. It's dumb. It shouldn't have happened, but... Both of these guys can get to that level, like 900-yard slot receiver. I think it's in the cards probably.
This episode of Stay Hot is brought to you by our friends over at Shady Rays. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company that offers world-class products rivaling tons of other brands that I've tried in the past. They have you covered from the sun to the slopes with premium polarized shades, customizable snow goggles, and much more. If you take a look at our wonderful co-host THEO NFL with these amazing polarized sunglasses, you can be just as drippy as he is right now. Now, if you lose or break your pair, even on day one, Shady Rays will send you a brand new pair. No questions asked. And if for whatever reason you don't instantly fall in love like I did, just exchange for a new pair or return them for free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop with Shady Rays. Their team always has your back. But I think my favorite thing about Shady Rays is their emphasis on giving back. To date, they have donated over 20 million meals to fight hunger with Feeding America. So with Shady Rays, you can look good and feel good knowing you're helping to make a difference. And now exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the new year. So go on over to shadyrays.com and use the code STAYHOT for 50% off 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 200,000 people at Shady Rays, making an impact together.
That just leaves us with one guy left to talk about, right?
A guy that had no contested targets against man coverage.
How many man coverage targets did he have?
Man coverage targets?
Or man coverage snaps?
Man coverage targets, he had 38.
38.
Okay. Which that's top 10.
Yeah, so it sounds like he just wasn't contested.
Oh, he runs by people so easily.
Yeah, it's like either he wasn't contested or he just didn't get thrown to when he was contested. Those are the two options.
He's not a contested catch guy. Yeah. I think the big knock on Hyatt is that he just like what he did at Tennessee is kind of a weird little role. Like they'd line him up in the slot and just have him run up the seam or just go or whatever. It was just, that's just
cover
you just
three
don't
beaters.
See that very much in the NFL. And it's like you don't think he's a really high end route runner. You don't think that he's very good at dealing with press coverage. He's not that big. It's like I don't know. There's a fair number of things there that are negatives to me. And while he is, he was a great he's really good at tracking the ball and he's really fast. I don't know if that's quite enough for me to be like, yeah, this guy's, I don't know, super high on my board.
Yeah, he's an interesting evaluation because he's easy to evaluate. Like everyone should know after 5 snaps what Jalin Hyatt's deal is. It's just how much do you value that, I guess. Like he could do the one thing. The guy gets vertical separated. He runs by everybody. He is just got easy speed. If it's off coverage, it doesn't matter. Just runs right by him all the time. Super productive. He won the award over Marvin Harrison Jr., did he not? Like best receiver award.
Mm-hmm.
He did do that. Yes.
That was a very
yeah. I get it. I mean, it's like NFL awards. That's a statistical award. Statistically, I think he did have like more yards or something. But like, let's be clear, Marvin Harrison Jr. is the better player and was the better player last year. However, he had a great season.
Yeah, I mean, creating explosive plays is the most valuable thing you can do. Like, if you create more explosive plays than the other team, you're going to win the game. And he really helps you do that. But he's not reliable. He can't run good routes. He takes way too many steps. He's slow in and out of breaks. You never see him deal with press coverage. They hide him behind people in stacks and in motion, and you just don't really see him deal with contact ever. And when he does get contact, he doesn't really deal with it too well in the very few instances I saw him trying to like beat press. So you've just got this guy, he's like Will Fuller. That's the name you always hear. And I think that's a valid concern, where I think like he's going to be an effective deep threat at the next level. It's just, that's all he's going to be. And where do you take that? I also think he's really bad after the catch, like really bad.
Yes.
He
statistically, he was really bad after the catch last year.
I don't even know statistically. I was just watching the film, and
it's really bad.
He would catch something and then like size a guy up and kind of like shift, but it's like, you got to go somewhere, dude, because now you just got tackled. Like he can't set people up. He's not really dynamic when it comes to like lateral agility to make guys miss, or he's not powerful enough to run through them. He just kind of like head fake. I'm setting you up, and then he just goes down. So he's a one trick pony. It's a pretty good trick, and that's my scouting report.
So wait. Are all of Tennessee's football players just
fake? Yes.
Well, because I'm sitting here, I'm like, okay, so Hendon Hooker, fake football player, just stands there, throws like a robot, and it works. And then Jalin Hyatt, one trick pony, runs just straight down the field. Jalin Hyatt's the hoop, right? Like you said Hendon Hooker's the robot basketball player. Jalin Hyatt's the hoop then.
And
who's the stormtroopers? I think that's Darnell Wright. Is this Darnell Wright in this situation?
Darnell Wright's the stormtroopers.
Darnell Wright is somewhat legit, I guess. Although I do think like because Hooker doesn't get much depth in his drop, that the outside shoulder of Wright is not as like vulnerable as other guys, because Hooker just doesn't have any depth in the pocket. So even like Darnell Wright, I think his job gets like pretty easy, and shout out the offense. Like it wrecks shop, and maybe teams should run it at the NFL level, but they just don't.
Yeah, they just
don't.
Who is their offensive coordinator, man? That's what I want to know.
How do you pronounce their coach's name? It's Hupel.
Their head coach, Hupel.
Yeah.
And then their offensive
he's the mastermind.
Oh, he's the mastermind?
Yeah, it's
the
Hupel's
thing is
offense.
About Tennessee is I think you're going to see a lot of players be able to pull off similar things in the upcoming, like Joe Milton, for example, who had to transfer away from Michigan. He got a lot of hype, and he was just not that good for them. I think he's going to be really good for Tennessee next year. I think he's going to kill it for them. I think he may be even better than Hendon Hooker. So we'll see what that offense does going forward, but I definitely do think it lends to big numbers.
Joe Milton stepped in for them this year and played a couple games. He had 10 touchdowns, 0 picks, 971 yards, over 11 yards per attempt, and nearly 12. Like with a 65, his completion percentage last year in a 62 attempts was 51. This year it jumped to 64. Small sample sizes, but the year he started at Michigan, he was like below 60%. So yeah, it's an offense that is quarterback friendly, and it really hid Hyatt's flaws, I felt like. And you want to design your offense to the strengths of your players, and there's some system out there that could use, again, Chargers. They could use a guy like Hyatt, but I don't know if he's quite dynamic enough that you could. He's someone that's going to be.
They need Flowers, man. That's
two catches, 50 yards every game. He's not going to be a consistent, reliable guy.
There was an Ohio State receiver, Devin Smith, who did something very similar for Ohio State for a very long time, and he was very good. And I don't think
Devin Smith was better.
I don't think he did anything in the NFL. This is not a very good knock against Hyatt, because I was like 11 watching Devin Smith or whatever. But
no, bro, Devin Smith was him.
Not working out the NFL broke my heart, man. He was good.
No, Devin
Second
Smith
round pick for the Jets, right?
Yeah. No, Devin Smith was a dog. That man was loaded.
All he did was catch bombs, man. It was awesome.
But he caught all of them.
Was he the one who caught the Braxton Miller
against Wisconsin? Yep.
Yeah. He was special. That was a great play.
He was like that.
Are there any?
So
that's the top 6. I would say if we're tiering these guys, I would go JSN 1, and then I would probably say there's a bucket after that with like Flowers, and then I think I probably do have him as wide receiver 2, and then I think there's like the reliable slot guys who are fine but not super explosive or dynamic of
Addison and
Downs, and then Johnston is your big swing that we would stay away from. And then so I guess the question is like, where do we evaluate Hyatt? If those are our rankings,
Hyatt is Corey Coleman, I fear.
I don't know, man. I just think the skill set is really, really limited. And I think if it was just as easy as running past people and tracking the ball, you'd see a lot more people be able to do it. I'm not totally out on him or anything. But man, I don't know. He might be my wide receiver 6 of this group. That would be the order. I wrote it down here. That's the order you just listed was the order I had him in.
Yeah. I think that so we're aligned. We gotta disagree a bit more. Next time I'm saying some crazy bullshit.
Yeah.
You guys need to fight a little bit more, I think.
All right. Well, how did this? We could talk about Rasheed Rice, who BLAIDEN likes and I think stinks.
Rasheed Rice is fine. Like, I think you give him too much crap as not being a good contested catch player.
I mean, he's not. You said it with Quentin Johnston, where you're like, he's not actually that good. It's at like 33% on PFF.
Yeah, it's
in the tracking.
It's like 30. Yeah, it's like 30%. Rasheed Rice's contested catch rate is like 47 or 48.
No, it's not. I don't think so.
Yes,
you can look it up. I will say you can look it up. I'll say this about it. He's got better technique at the catch point than Quentin Johnston does. Like, he has at his high end, like, contested catch moments against Maryland. There's a couple other ones.
I'll let you.
There's a couple other ones where I do think that he is a bit stronger at the catch point, so it wouldn't surprise me. But the numbers I saw, it was pretty low. Am I wrong?
33 contested targets last year, 16 contested catches, 48.5%.
That's Big Ten. Is that good? I don't know where that ranks.
It's like,
that is good. Well, you think of it as like,
okay.
Like, for someone that had 38 contested target or 33 contested targets, like, that's a lot on the year. Like, Quentin Johnston only had 23 and only caught 8 of them. Right.
I must have been mistaken then. But I would say that is another thing that concerns me about Rasheed Rice is how much of his game is dictated on those contested catches. Like, right. That's a lot of contested targets.
No, like that's like most of his game. It's like most of it, but
yeah, he doesn't run a full route tree. He is not really explosive at like dipping his hips and getting in and out of breaks. He's a bit older. I think his catch technique was a bit wonky this year. I know for a fact that this, I'm not mistaken on this one, like the contested catch stats, but his accurate target catch rate was really low. He dropped a lot of easy passes. Yes. Like beyond 5 yards down the field, Sports Info Solutions had him at like, I think low 80s, high 70s, somewhere there. And you want to be like in the 90s in those. So there are a lot of drops. He's not super explosive, not super dynamic, doesn't run a full route tree. He's a little bit older and senior prospects. That's the other thing about this class. A lot of these guys are seniors, and there's not a good track record of wide receivers who stayed all 4 years being good.
Well, here's the other thing. A lot of these receivers had 8, 9, 10 drops this year. Zay Flowers had 9 drops. Rasheed Rice had 9 drops. Tank Dell had 9 drops. Quentin Johnston had 8 drops. Like, a lot of these guys.
This has not been a good fight, you guys. I was hoping for more name calling and screaming.
You're right.
All I'm saying is that, like, if I was going to swing for the fences on a contested catch guy, I think I would prefer Rice over Johnston, just because I think he might have a better. I think he might have a better shot to actually bring down some of those contested catches. I think he has, like, it's just he's better at it right now.
I think that, yeah, he may be better at contested catches, but you know,
like, if that's what you wanted,
Johnston can run away from people. There's more of them because he's not getting the separation that Johnston, like, he's just not as dynamic off the line of scrimmage. His releases aren't as good. Like, he's not someone who can really put his foot in the ground and fly right by someone and really create separation with burst. Like, Johnston can do all that, and that's why. And yes, there are problems with it, but I do think, like, he is a very different caliber athlete than Rasheed Rice.
Yeah,
who you know, played against higher levels of competition. I think he is a bit younger. He is, yeah, to me, like, he's a better prospect. Like, Rasheed Rice is just, I don't know. His foot speed is too slow. It just is for me.
That's fair. I mean, he's definitely not the same caliber of athlete. I can definitely concede.
Another contested catch guy that intrigues me a little bit is A.T. Perry out of Wake Forest. He's very interesting. He's someone that I think has a pretty good feel for zone coverage, settling down, making himself available in scramble drill mode. He has been super productive over the last 2 years. Again, a little bit of an older prospect who played his senior season, but he's tall. He's like 6'4". He ran like a 4.47. Played in a very fake offense at Wake Forest where they, like, hold the mesh point for 10 seconds before throwing the damn ball, which should be banned.
They get the quarterback in there blocking a little bit. Oh yeah,
it's
baby.
Dumb.
It's awesome.
But he's a pretty good, he could transition to being a runner faster than you'd expect someone of his size. And he runs some decent routes. He is a bit of a push off merchant sometimes, which makes that look a little bit better. But he intrigues me, and he's not super dynamic. He's not twitchy or nearly as explosive as a guy like Josh Downs, or he's not a contested catch artist to the extent that T. Higgins is, despite his size. And he has some problems letting guys into his frame on the release. But A.T. Perry is a sleeper that I have has piqued my curiosity more than a lot of the other guys I've seen. Mingo is another one that I've watched. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if you guys have watched any sleepers that we haven't talked about.
I haven't watched a ton of sleepers. Trying to, like, pull up, like, film, because preparing for this video, I don't have Wi-Fi. So trying to pull up film on your phone just sucks, man. My phone's getting, like, all hot, and I've been, like, cleaning all day. So my, like,
Matt's on the LTE.
Like, gross, man. This sucks. So.
Who says that film is soft work? You got sweaty hands. You got
soft hands, brother. I've been watching film all day.
I've been watching.
Yeah, my hands look like this, so hers can look painted nails. I've been running film. Had 6 tabs open, a PFF and Sports Reference and Caddy's cut ups running all on my phone.
I got carpal tunnel in my wrist from me moving the mouse.
I've been scrubbing with my finger instead of a mouse. Do you have any idea how hard that is? How hard I work?
One more thing about Rasheed Rice. He had 56 first downs and he forced 19 missed tackles last year.
I don't care, man.
Which were both top 5, man. The numbers speak for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, he's been productive. He's certainly been productive. I'm just not moved when I watch the film. I turn the film on, and this isn't the athlete that's going to be able to create separation or run by people the same way he was at SMU. There's a lot of reps where I'm like, if this was against an NFL corner, this would not fly.
Maybe.
Like, even at his pro day, I saw him running a route, and he just looks slow to me. And he didn't have a great Senior Bowl.
They said Jamar Chase wouldn't be able to separate at the next level.
Well, Rice, that's a good comp for Rice, is like like I've said before,
slower Jamar Chase.
Jamar Chase, if the Monstars sapped all of his power and like explosiveness, that's what Rasheed Rice is like to me.
But he can still catch, and that's all that matters.
Sometimes he actually has a very low on target catch rate, so he can sometimes
yeah, that's
catch.
true.
That's true. There's some bad drops.
If it's a bad throw, actually, you know what? He should go play with Zach Wilson. This is the vision. Zach Wilson's getting traded to
Green Bay.
Green Bay, and then they're drafting Rasheed Rice, and Zach Wilson's going to win an MVP, and Rasheed Rice is going to win Offensive Player of the Year. This is the vision.
That would check out for the Packers when they do things that I don't like on draft day, and it still is fun. Works out fine in the long run.
It works out. But I don't really have anything else, so I think we can wrap this old episode up. We'll talk about running backs and probably tight ends on a live stream, I think is the plan for that. So again, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube so that you're stay tuned for that. We'll talk about another position on Monday's episode. But until then, as always, from Corn Boy, Bird Boy, and Lemon Boy, thank you all so much for tuning in, and we will catch you all on the Flippity Flop.